Oh, hey, Alice. Fancy seeing you here. You walked in at a good time. We got Joseph West from Resistance House Band, Big Jed's Big Rigs, PJ and the Bear, Follyball, and the Pearl Jam cover band Indifference. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
We also have Neif on the mic over at the satellite. He was working. He was kicking some tunes earlier. It's exclusive though. You can't hear it. Top secret. So we were talking about how you have extreme views on extremism. Um, before Alice got here. I mean, you know, I don't. How extreme can you be towards extremism? Because extremism is pretty extreme. So
Yeah, I find that topic extremely interesting. Yeah.
It's so interesting. We're gonna move on from it now.
Too interesting for the viewers at home.
Yeah, they're just like too compelled. It's like slow down a little bit. It's like hot and heavy. Yeah, so what do you think is the greatest threat humanity faces?
Uh, I think the greatest threat we face is ourselves. I mean, I feel like that's kind of almost generic of an answer to go for, but like I think we're clearly at a point now where we have too many people on this planet, and too many of those people aren't operating in good faith and with good intentions to those around them. And while I love like an optimistic view that we can kind of like push things forward with science and be able to get to a point where we can all be able to function simultaneously, it seems to me at least that we're rapidly approaching, just like any species does whenever they are too dominant, we're rapidly approaching a point where like we've reached our capacity.
Yeah. So I also feel like it looks rather bleak. I try to be optimistic, but I have a similar outlook. And so, would you say it's safe to say it's our finale is probably sooner rather than later? Like, you think how long do you give humanity?
I don't see. I don't know if there's ever.
Being a drummer, you're an expert on this subject.
Yeah, being a drummer, I see the depths of humanity, the lowest lows. Usually, it's by staring at the ass of whoever is singing the songs and thought they were cocky enough to get on stage and put their opinions out there to the world.
So we'll get back to that, but let's talk about this now. That's an interesting perspective. Like as a drummer, you just have to stare at everyone's asses.
Yeah.
So you have to stare at blinding lights and everyone's ass, and
yeah,
like three dudes' asses usually.
Yeah. Well, it does give you a perspective. I mean, I could theoretically, like theoretically, I have the most knowledge to be able to rate the ass of every single member of every project that I'm in. But unfortunately, I play with mostly white guys. So you have to keep in mind that all of these numbers I could throw out would all be less than average.
Zero.
Yeah. These would all be like very poor showings in the ass department.
Have you ever played Metal Gear Solid?
No, it's funny you mentioned that though. I have been really getting into original PlayStation and also PS2 games lately. I bought a PS2 recently, and I've been going back and playing a lot of classics.
So, is that a thing? Because I think I got a bunch of old PS2 games.
So, is that a what?
I said, so I guess that's a thing now. That's cool because I got a bunch of I think I got a bunch of PS2 games still somewhere.
I don't know how much of a thing it is. Like I like would hazard to say that I'm solely unique in this and the only one who's bringing back the PS2. So surely there's other fucking weirdos out there.
Hello. Cordie in the house.
I think I got some 360 games. Hey, Cordie.
But at least I haven't seen very many people who that's kind of what they're into and pursuing right now.
So you walked in at a weird time, but the reason I brought up Metal Gear Solid And since you're playing PlayStation games, you should definitely play it now. There's a mission where you have to identify one of your comrades by her butt.
Oh, okay.
Because she's wearing a uniform and you can't see her face or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you're under a table. So you're just looking up, and there's all these people walking around, and she's in disguise, and you're supposed to reach out and contact her, but you have to figure out which one. Anyway, if you were ever in a situation where you were under a table and you had to identify your bandmates,
I would probably do pretty well.
You would know, no, that's him.
Well, see, but maybe not, because again, we come back to the fact that they're all white guys. So all their asses look the same.
This is like some heads up 7-Up shit. Like that game in school. But like if you grew up in like the 80s or the 90s, it was chill because like windbreakers. Like you noisy motherfuckers.
So was there a lot of music in the house growing up?
A little bit. I mean, my parents really love 80s music, and so I grew up detesting it with every fiber of my being. It's taken a long time for me to be able to go back and actually be like, okay, Tears for Fears did have some bops. It took me a long time to get to that place, though. But the weird thing with them is that they always said that they just like stopped listening to music in the 90s. So it was very strange because that ended up being kind of the era where I feel like I draw like most of my inspiration from. So it was probably specifically because they were like, no, we don't listen to 90s music. I was like, okay, cool, that's all I'm gonna listen to.
Spite.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So there was music in the house, but that's not what inspired you. Only maybe it did inspire you, just not in a positive way.
In spite of you.
Inspired you.
Inspired.
Inspired.
That's more of a butterfly.
Yeah. I'm sure that looks exactly like a butterfly.
It does.
Do you have any ghost stories?
No,
I think that's also a great answer.
I don't have any ghost stories. However, the man who taught me how to play the drums, his name was Dominic Delianibus. And
what a name.
Yeah, Italian gigantic motherfucker, like fucking like 450 pounds. He was a beautiful human being. And he was the firmest believer in ghosts that I've ever met in my entire life. To the point that whenever I was starting to have conversations with him about how I was starting to fall out of religion and I was no longer at least believing in at least the Christian God, he specifically said to me, then how do you explain ghosts? And that was his comeback for my lack of faith in God. And he was willing to admit, like, he was like, I can't say that it is the Christian God, but there has to be some sort of God if there are ghosts who walk around.
He's just like, we all know ghosts as a fact, right? And as seeing as how that's a fact of the universe, that means God.
I mean, he had some crazy stories that to him were absolute definite proof of the existence of ghosts. I don't remember any of them. It'd probably be a lot more entertaining if I did, but he was supremely confident in that fact. And I don't know, as somebody who I struggle to believe in almost anything ever. I'm almost like jealous that somebody could like so strongly believe in anything as much as that man believed in ghosts.
Right, like I only believe in misfortune.
So
that's a belief, though.
With this kind of stuff, it always comes down to faith too. So, like, for example, if that hammer started levitating and then a disembodied voice said, "I'm a ghost,"
yeah,
we would have no definitive proof that that was a ghost.
Yep.
We have no idea what forces are operating to cause that, right? So it's like, even if that occurred, you still don't know that that's a ghost.
It'd be very hard to take him seriously. You'd be like, you have all that power, and that's what you choose to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm revealing myself to you.
Yeah, it seems like the thing about it is if ghosts were to exist, there would be almost no beneficial reason for them to ever reveal themselves.
Almost
people.
none.
It's like, show
So-
your hand. Too soon.
So I am a believer, and I have many experiences that I would consider supernatural at this point in my life. But I've never seen poltergeist activity. I've never seen something move on its own. My experiences have always been like channeling, or like through like either an invoking board, or like through like intense meditation, or like psychedelics. Like you take something like DMT, it's hard to not quantify that as some kind of like spiritual or alien encounter.
Or devil's advocate, you could chalk it up to insanity.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. I have many experiences that I would consider that way, but I also keep in my mind that these could all be like delusions of the mind. The imagination is extremely, extremely powerful, especially if you start talking about like psychoactive substances, right? So I think that's important, although like that's not what I would say even logically, like the conclusion I come to. But it is, I think that's really important, to always keep in mind that, you don't really know anything in general, right? Not just when we're talking about like the occult, but like you never want to like, it's always good to be like a child, like always learning, right? It's like, I feel like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Like old people can't learn things. It's like they're too stubborn. It's like, so I always want to be open-minded. That was a rant. I have a saying that I'm dogmatic towards anti-dogma, or I'm dogmatic towards dogmatism. Same way you're extreme towards extremism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm guessing. So my next question would have been, do you believe in ghosts, or some kind of like alien presence beyond this dimension? I'm guessing the answer to that is no.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge difference between being aware that something is a distinct possibility, or even believing that something is likely to be true, as opposed to having absolute unshakable faith in something.
Sure.
So like an example of like aliens, be it something either in this dimension or interdimensional, like the scope of what we're looking at is so vast that it almost seems impossible for there not to be some kind of
Yeah.
existence outside of the realms, the worlds that we're used to. But at the same time, just kind of like you're anti being dogmatic, it's anybody who is so absolutely assured that that's true is, to me, kind of making a bit of a fallacy as well, because at this time at least there's no way to substantially prove anything.
Oh, sure. And that's why I keep asking these questions, because none of us know. And I get stuck on them a lot. They're not really as important as like what's in front of you, right? But like this is I guess it's something I struggle with. It's like I think about like what all this is about. I think about what happens after all this. And ultimately, like it really doesn't matter though. Like, because it shouldn't affect how you live your life. If you are dead when you die and that's it, you should still live your life as a good person. Like that shouldn't give you an excuse to like be a piece of shit or something, right? It's like, well, there's no consequence, nothing really matters. It's like, well, being good matters. Like smiling and being pleasant to people, that's important. Fuck, I forgot what we were talking about. So So I definitely am with you about like extraterrestrials. So like there has to be life outside of this planet, like out there.
It seems very likely. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that they've had contact with Earth in our history or presently?
I don't think I'm really knowledgeable enough about those sorts
Me
of things
either.
to kind of
Yeah.
really have a strong opinion on it. It's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
like it makes sense to me why any sort of operation like that where there is any sort of communication with Earth, why one would want to keep that hidden,
Sure.
especially if you're from the people who are not the Earth humans, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, I'm sure there are people who have studied it and probably have substantial proof one way or the other, but it's not something I'm super knowledgeable about.
That surprises me because you're a drummer.
Yeah.
I just expect like you coming in here, I expect you to know everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
As I stated, I know a lot about asses.
Male asses.
Yeah, male asses specifically. A little bit about female asses, but not nearly to the same extent.
Yeah.
A little bit of a shift. How do you feel about the state of our local music scene and community post-pandemic? And what do you think we need to do to continue to rebuild?
I feel like everything is entirely different and no one's talking about it. No one has addressed the fact that it doesn't feel the same as it used to.
Yeah.
And that
That's true.
in certain ways, it feels like most people I know are either going through the motions or they are so hell bent on financial and commercial success that they're letting it cloud what they're doing. And because of that, in many ways, creating art that is not satisfying to them emotionally or creatively, or even financially long term, because turns out it's a hard business to make a buck in, and you can try as hard as you want to make lots and lots of money, but given how unlikely those odds are, it seems like giving away the thing that supposedly is what gives you all your meaning in life, to get that seems like a really bad deal to make.
Yeah, it's definitely a labor of love. You have to wake up and truly enjoy what you're doing every single day to be able to have that longevity to make it last. So how do you think we get back to what Music City used to be and to be a place where local musicians can thrive?
I don't know. Again, I'm obviously I'm working from a limited amount of experience. I've only been, you know, I've only been playing music in Nashville for what is that, like 10, 12 years?
You're
something
only
like
in
that.
you're only in what, 5 bands?
Yeah,
Only
only
five
five,
bands,
yeah.
only over a decade.
Yeah. But that compared to what being a local musician in Nashville means in the context of this city and every single band that's ever existed, anyone who's gotten up on a stage and done it, I feel like I do have a pretty limited kind of understanding of things. And at least in my experience, this has not ever been a place that's been the most hospitable.
Oh
That's-
yeah,
that's fair.
I am
Yeah.
So
100%. It wasn't exactly great before the pandemic. Yeah, fair.
I will say before the pandemic, I felt more camaraderie. I felt like the people who I was playing in bands with or on the same bill as, I felt like they were all lifers. Like they're stuck in this system just like I am. I know that they're not gonna get away. We're all hoping for a little bit of success, but we're gonna keep doing it, whether we find it or not. And I felt at least confident in the fact that none of us were either going to stop doing it or try to sell out our morals for the sake of getting any level of success. And that's the biggest thing, I guess, that's different. I haven't felt a sense of community, and I don't think it's something that we can just like, as much as I love conceptually the idea of 3 people being able to sit on a couch and put their heads together and figure out how to like fix something like that. I don't think it's something that's going to be fixed anytime soon.
Music City in general has so long been saturated with artists, as far as music artists, that it's one of the most difficult towns to play, especially when you're coming from outside. And when I used to run shows for, road bands, they'd be blown away when they'd come in. It'd be Music City, we're here. Where is everybody at? I'd say, they're playing their own shows. And it's just because it's so saturated, and now we're battling against New Nashville, which is trying to capitalize off of the idea of Music City. It's like you're saying, it's a lot more difficult. It takes a whole lot more of everybody looking into themselves and kind of taking it upon themselves to do that and not cut each other off and try to put each other in and out of positions and just worrying about trying to get yourself successful. It turns into too much of a competition, like a race to a finish line. People are willing to trip each other to get there.
Yeah. There has to be like camaraderie, not, this expands outside of like what we're currently talking about with like the music scene here. Like overall, we just have to, we're all on the same team, or at least we ought to be. Like the human race, we're not at all on the same team sometimes, but we should be. And it's like, I don't know, maybe, it starts with the mirror, right? Like it starts with everybody. It starts with the individual. And I think I've seen a lot of what you're talking about, Joe, because I'm not a musician, I'm in any bands, but obviously I've talked to a lot of people, and
You go to a lot of shows.
Yeah, I know some people that do that, and I don't know, it's really cliquey. Like people play the same shows with the same people at the same venues,
Which doesn't really help anybody.
which doesn't help anybody, including the people, including the bands on that bill. I think that would help, is people branching out. There are a lot of artists that are really good about that too, get out and play, but I feel like that's part of the solution, is just mixing it up. I don't know. I'd like to see more variety shows. I know people like to play to, with bands. It makes sense, for marketing too, to fit the bill with bands that are similar, but I don't know. Maybe that would be a good idea, is just swap up genres and do more variety shows. Not talking about any of your bands, but just in general, Nashville people do that.
Yeah. So I think a couple things with that. Back to the topic on clickiness. I feel like I've been on both sides of that. I've been the band that I feel like can't play anywhere because I'm not in any of the cliques, and I've been in the bands that are in some sort of circle and are the first one to be called for certain things. And it's such a interesting place that all this is in, because while I used to hold a lot of resentment towards the kind of cliquey nature of it, I understand it more now that I've been on both sides, because usually those are situations in which this band wants to book a show somewhere. They want to book bands who they actually like their music. They
Good point.
They can actually get along with them.
Yeah.
And
they know they're gonna agree.
And they know that they're gonna bring at least a couple of people.
Yeah.
So it's the sort of thing where I I hear what you're saying, but I know I have also fallen victim to the, oh, I'm putting on a show. Well, I know if I put these two other bands on this show who I've played with a million times, that we'll have a good show. Sure, it's not going to like bring us into a whole new group of people. It's not necessarily bringing a new band into the fold, but it does mean at least that night, everything feels like it's good.
Mhm.
It's a lot more complicated than I realized. That's a really, you made a few really good points about that.
It's true. And when it comes to it, like you can try to branch out, but you've only got like such a window of time. You know, if you wait until a month before the show, like, and you don't reach out to those bands that you know you are going to confirm, you may mess around and then you don't have those bands to rely on and you can't find anybody and then you lose the show altogether. It's
And that's
it's
how
just a
it
whole
gets
lot of chaos.
clicky. It's organic. It's
And I
not,
feel like there's other words to use there as well. Like to me, clicky has a negative connotation. Clicky means that we don't let other people in the group, and that's not always the case. You know, like I feel like you could say this is our community, this is our group of friends. It's just the people that we know. It's the community that we formed. Whereas when I think of clicky, it's, you know, maybe it's I've tried to, you know, become a part of this group. I've tried to become a part of this community, and for some reason they're gatekeeping me out. That's what I think of when I hear clicky, and I've seen that before. You know, I've always felt on the outside of certain groups, and that's what I think of when I hear clicky. And I don't think that's necessarily what you're talking about when you say you've been a part of cliques.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Well, maybe you have been a part of cliques, and I wouldn't be welcome there.
I think when it comes to the idea of the term clicky, it more has to do with the outside looking in, because as an actual collective group of underground musicians, everybody wants everybody to come to your show. I mean, it's very rare that you have, you know, somebody's got to be really on the wrong side with you to you're like, I don't want you to show up and pay $5 to come to my show. You know what I'm saying? You want every band in town to come pay $5 to your show. But
no, but you don't want everybody to play with you.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, and so there's kind of a weird line, because it is like you're saying, it's not always that way. And sometimes people will feel that way when it's not, you know, when the other side of it, people aren't necessarily trying to do that. They just end up kind of stuck in a position, or they don't really know, you know. And I think the biggest holdup there is communication, is because you have people that are just so worried about just expressing what they do and leaving anything else out, you know. And you know, as long as I've been here and doing stuff, I naturally have had a lot of different relationships with different artists that have gone a whole lot of different directions. And I try to make it a policy of mine to keep all of that in a professional area where I don't try to let things bleed over. I mean, I could absolutely despise a person, which I don't usually feel that way about people in general, but I'm not gonna waste my energy bashing them or trying to keep them off a show or shut their show down. You know, it's if they're really that bad and they were that bad to me, then they're just gonna go about their thing and everybody else will see that, or it was whatever. I need to focus on myself and my band and the other bands around me that I want to bring up.
Yeah.
You know,
focus on yourself instead of
and if you're the artist that's saying that everybody that steps on the stage with you, everybody here tonight playing was great. That's what people want to hear. They don't want to hear everybody here tonight was great except for that third band, because that guitar player was a dick to me 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
So don't buy any merch from them.
Yeah, fuck them.
You know. So I mean, you know, and it doesn't. It's like you're saying, Cordie. It's not really that harsh. Now I'm certain there's been that kind of situation, and that's not the norm, and that's an extreme. Just like it's almost like we should really be trying to pull it to the extreme of the other way. Where we're just like, no matter what, it's like, look, man, it's all music. We're all struggling artists out here.
Yeah,
exactly. Like if somebody's a dick at a show that I play with them, I'll normally go out of my way to be super nice to them.
Right.
Like hell, I might even buy one of their shirts just to make them feel like an asshole.
like bye.
Yeah.
Or we could go the other direction, but we script it so we could basically have the WWE, but it's all local bands, and people who aren't aware of what's going on will think that there's genuine feuds between all these groups, and they all hate each other, like stage like fights on stage and shit.
That would sell.
Dude,
dude, that's Plan B for saving Music City.
Dude,
let's do it.
If we can't do it naturally, that's where we're going. Full
WWE. No. Let's promote it to Plan A. I like this idea. This is
that's
actually way. I mean, you could like to make it not feel shitty too. Violence. Bro, I was gonna say I have a concussion now. Oh yeah, to like it could be like WWE too. So like there's a like air of like, okay, this kind of seems like it's fake.
Oh,
but
of
like,
course.
But also sell it. Like
yeah, it's got to be over the top.
Yeah. Like really lean into
it. It's like there was that episode of South Park where all the boys started their own like backyard wrestling league. We need like long, like 30-minute, just like bits of just dialogue, just in between all the sets, where they're just like, I hate you because you fucked my mom. Well, I hate you because you fucked my dad. And just back and forth, escalating tension. Be like, you know what? To show you, I'm gonna play this goddamn song.
I love the idea of this like being played to like 3 people at the bar that are not listening. And no one's filming.
Yeah, 3 people at Springwater are gonna be like, what the fuck is going on?
I've got to go watch this.
What is this?
Well, the promotional videos could literally be like the fight promos, you know, where you got the band members staring each other down, or they're at the press conference yelling at each other across the tables, you know.
Yeah,
we just need more performance art.
Yeah. Man. That's it. You said we wouldn't figure it out. Just
you're right. Here. You're right. I was arrogant in my opinion about our lack of ability to figure this out.
What do we call it? Like AME, Amazing Musicians Entertaining.
There you go. And who holds the belt?
Me.
There has to be a championship bout.
Well,
it should get physically violent too.
There is a local band called Bad Acting that in fact has a wrestling belt on stage. So they should probably start with the belts. But at some point they're going to have to lose it because we got to keep this interesting for the
Someone's going to hit him over the head with a guitar and then steal it. Hopefully he doesn't die, because that would be not good.
Tragic.
Murder's not good.
Depends.
True.
Yeah, I'm willing to bend on murder depending on the situation.
Murder is not good situationally.
Yeah. Well, I know this is a weird thing to be like. It's funny you say that, but I found myself. There was one point in my life I realized as a little kid where I was such an absolutist about my morals.
Me too.
I believed certain things without a doubt. And one of those was that you should never do anything to harm another person, no matter what they have done. And by doing the harm, you're making yourself a worse person. Basically, I wanted to be I want to be Luke Skywalker, basically.
It's true,
Just
though.
like complete morality. If I refuse to fight Darth Vader, then he's going to kill the real bad guy. And then I won't have to do it. I truly believe this was the path, but I found as I've gotten older, I don't hold to that same morality that I do anymore. And I'm definitely in the place where I'm like, yeah, some people just need to die.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna let you kill me just because, like, if I kill you in self-defense, like I'm the bad guy.
But
so I think both things are true. Go ahead though.
Yeah, but the thing is that there's a part of me that's really upset that I've lost that innocence, because I think at that point I don't think I was wrong that is technically the truest positive morality. that really is the quote unquote morally best way to act. It's just completely unfeasible.
It's just that was just before the world just like took you and beat you down into the earth for like a while, a few decades. Yeah. It's like the yeah.
Oh man.
It'd be like that though. Like it's impossible, but it's like you have to strive. You have to try. And I think both things can be true in the sense of like I'm actually very pro death sentence. I'm actually very against life sentence. Like to me that's torture. To me that's unnecessary torture to trap someone in a cage for the rest of their life with no chance of ever getting out. That's you're just torturing them. Kill them. Also, it's a waste of my fucking tax money. Just fucking kill them. I'm also like,
Wrong.
No, I don't think so.
really?
I'm curious to hear why you think he's wrong.
Well, like the wrongful conviction rate is like not good.
Okay, but that's a separate issue though, because that's our failed justice system. That shouldn't have to. That's a separate thing that we need to fix.
Yeah, well, we're gonna go down a whole rabbit hole because I'm gonna say that's some like
Rabbit hole?
libertarian, like idealistic bullshit. Like, well, yeah, well, it shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. So
No, I'm just saying they're separate issues. So we have to, yes, we have to solve the fact that there's a lot of
there's just so much uncertainty. Like, you never know. You never know. We can't just like kill people. Sometimes maybe we should, but we can't just kill people all the time because it's expensive to keep them alive. Because then all of a sudden, where do we draw the line? You're next thing you know, you're going to be like, let's just kill homeless people.
No, I don't. I'm not paying. Well, I guess I am by force, but I'm not happy about the fact that I'm paying for rapists and murderers to be alive. I'm not, and I'm not going to be chill about it. It's not okay.
Now, to Cordie's point,
we should never kill anybody ever, even if we die. To well, that's expensive. Kill them.
No, I wasn't. No, I was. The point I was.
Hard turn.
No, the point I was trying to make is that both things are true. That like, yes, there's good in every single person, but that doesn't mean that we can't have laws. We have to have punishments for crimes. It's like, okay, so like every person is a victim of circumstance. Everybody, even the worst person, worst dictator, they got to that point because of shit that happened to them. So you could say that they're a victim, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be punished for the crimes, right? So there's tons of great people, and good people get corrupted into being bad people and do heinous things. And I don't think the solution to that is putting them in a cage. Now, I understand the whole conviction argument, but that's a separate argument. I feel like that's
well. I think to slam those two things together. To Cordie's point, yeah, the wrongful conviction rate in our judicial system is so jacked that to increase laws and increase the death rate is probably disastrous. Because we'd have to, it's probably I'm absolutely against paying for people, especially people that did heinous crimes, to live. But we'd have to fix one thing before we fix the other. I think the first most important and easiest thing that we could do to fix our justice system, and it wouldn't entirely fix it, is to remove victimless crime.
Yeah.
That's the one and main thing that we can do, is remove victimless crime and not allow the state or a corporation to represent itself as a human and a victim. So therefore you have so many resources that are being saved now, because you don't have all these bullshit convictions and officers running around doing stupid shit and pulling people over for nonsense and people getting thrown in prison for nonsense. Then we could focus more directly on mentally ill people and heinous crime committing people. And then it would seem a little more, you could get extreme anarchist like some people that y'all might know, to be more in line with going, yeah, well, maybe, let's not get rid of the whole damn thing,
Yeah.
but that's just,
I would also like, even though I do hate rapists and murderers, I would also like more humane treatment for people while they are in prison.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody should be abused or raped or treated like a fucking animal. And I think that
Right.
if this is going to be, called a rehabilitation center, then people shouldn't be used as slaves or for the profit of, the prison system. Prison shouldn't be for
Right.
profit.
Well, then
Or
you get
if they
into
are there
that's
because they did
that's a whole
something,
other thing.
maybe put them to work.
That
I
is
mean, if they are put to work, why are we paying for it, and why is it for profit of the prison system?
and a lot of them are put to
It
work.
shouldn't be for profit of the prison system, like make
And
them do
they're
jobs like picking trash on the road that no one else wants to do.
Yeah, the thing is they get put to work within our infrastructure, and it goes back to the point of why are we paying more money for them to save us money? If they're out cleaning up the roads, then we shouldn't be having to pay all this extra stuff,
Yeah.
So it just
If you're
gets
gonna
into
do it,
and that's the
tell them to
corruption of
work.
bureaucracy, and there's so many legs of the system that have to be chopped off rather than repaired. Then the power could be focused where it needs to be focused. That's
Yeah.
why people wonder, well, we can't just, what do you think, Neif? Anarchy just means we strip it all down and then destroy it all. I'm like, well, yeah, but that's not a logical move.
I get
No
why
matter
you're
how
saying,
against this shit I am, I know that's not a logical move.
I get why you're saying it's idealistic now, because you do have to fix one system before you can fix the other thing.
Yeah, and it's like they do have jobs in there, and I'm not opposed to that, but it shouldn't be jobs like making panties for JC Penney's or whatever it is. It's like you said, it should be things that benefits the community and like job skills that are like fucking useful and beneficial
Gardening
to not fucking corporations.
Yeah. I guess I am being idealistic to think that we could set things like that in place now, but I guess that's also not what I'm trying to say. Like, we do have to fix the amount of wrongful convictions. Like, we need
a good foundation
before we could. So, if the rate of harmful convictions was like, I don't know, let's say less than 1%, would you guys be against life sentences at that point? Would you be more leaning towards death sentences?
I mean, I still think that it's a worse punishment to spend life in prison.
It is. That's a way worse punishment.
I still would rather some people have a worse punishment. And like maybe I would rather the victims' families get to decide. Like maybe I'm just a little bit sadistic.
So that's where I actually just remembered the whole reason I brought up prison was because of what you were saying about how your morality as when you were a kid comparatively to now. So what did you just say? What did you literally just say, Cordie?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, like I believe that sometimes life in prison is a worse sentence than death.
Thank you.
And maybe the victim's family should be consulted,
Yeah. So, okay.
Like death is a relief. It's a reprieve.
So I think there's
gruesome crimes, dude.
If someone, I'm a believer that I don't believe in revenge. If someone does something horrible to someone I care about, you have to remove them from the situation. Whether that means like you're talking primal times, you throw a spear at them, or like you just don't include them in your environment. You like change your environment somehow. But I don't believe in revenge. You just remove the threat from the situation. That doesn't mean I don't feel that way. I get rises like that, like where I feel like I would feel good to hurt this person in some way because they wronged me. But I don't think that's good. Like you said, that does something to you. Now, being in the world we live in, like survival and different things, you have to sometimes stand up against evil, like against not necessarily evil, but against danger, right? Like sometimes you have to fight the wild animal. And it's like you don't hate this thing. It's not emotional, but you have to remove the threat from the situation. And that's a different thing from revenge. Now I think revenge is a very human feeling. Like, but like you said, it does something to you. And it also ripples out into the universe forever, that action, whatever you do. Like, you don't really comprehend the extent of the damage you do because it extends outside of just the thing you're inflicting damage on. So that was why so I think it's wrong to lock someone in a cage to torture them.
Well,
But
I
we
said
should remove
earlier
them
that I
if
think
they're a
that
problem.
prison should be humane.
I mean, there's nothing humane about locking someone in a cage.
Not all prisons are cages.
Yeah, they are.
You've seen a prison?
It's a big box with lots of smaller boxes in it. Right?
I only see them on TV. I don't visit. I don't visit.
I mean,
Some
metaphorically,
people
anyone
say that
it's a cage.
Yeah, I mean, technically, yeah, but like if you spend your whole
all
life in a house,
institutions
it's
are
a cage.
cages.
Yeah. I mean, we're in a cage too, right?
Yeah.
Whether
Despite
it's-
all my
Except me, I'm on a satellite.
in a cage. Billy Corgan, also a WWE expert. I don't know anything about wrestling, but apparently today I'm on a wrestling kick.
Yeah, man. We cracked the code.
AIM coming to a venue near you soon.
Get ready to rumble. So, what do you think happens after we die?
I don't know.
Me either.
I don't think anybody knows.
Nobody knows.
But I knew that you asked this question, so I was thinking about it.
Came prepared.
Yeah, I was thinking about this question, and I was reminded of an old George Carlin bit where he talks about that. And the bit is essentially that he believes that when people die, they go where they think they're going to go. If
like that.
the example he has is, you know, that dude who lives his whole life. Oh, don't bother praying for me. I'm going to hell. Oh, don't even bother. I'm going to hell.
Yeah,
well,
he
is
himself.
He's going to hell. That's what he decided he's going. And of course, the punchline of his bit is, I believe that whenever we die, we go to live in a garage in Buffalo, which is just, yeah, the most absurd, silly thing.
Yeah.
But while I am more inclined to believe that nothing happens and we just cease to exist, in my, like, still part of my heart that is still a child and still believes that it's wrong to ever hurt somebody else no matter what, I also want to believe that we go wherever we think we're going to go.
Yeah. I like that. That's there's what is it? What is that reminding me of, Neif? Is it Vedic? There's an ancient belief system similar to that. It might be Buddhist, it might be Hindu. I don't know. Does that ring a bell to you?
What are you talking about where it's your own belief?
Yeah, you get what you believe.
It's very similar to law of attraction, like whether you think you can
Well,
you cannot, you're right.
Yeah.
The only what that reminds me of, I don't know, I'm not certain of a religion that it comes out of, but I think it was actually a philosophy somebody had years ago psychologically, that when you die, you basically, your eternity, since the state of dreaming is timeless, that your eternity is your final dream. And it never
Just
ends
lasts forever.
because, you know, in a dream state, it's timeless. So your consciousness is basically just sitting in a state, you know.
Maybe I think I'm thinking of like Hindu,
Which,
it sounds very karmic as well.
well, the thing with the Vedics, I believe that if it's similar to what the Tibetan Buddhists believe, which I think it is that there's, I think, 7 different things you can be reincarnated into. That's the one that's you can be I believe you can be reborn as an animal, a demon, a god. Everybody wants to be reborn as a human.
Yeah,
But
gods. Yeah.
but I'm paraphrasing and also reaching into some memory banks that are dusty.
Yeah, I think that might be what I'm thinking of.
But I know that there's a philosophy about your final dream, and that kind of makes some sense on the level that if you've got a lot of torment because you're just a shitty person, you probably have nightmares constantly, like, and your final dream would be hell, because it'd be a nightmare.
Are you saying if you have nightmares, you're a shitty person?
No, I'm not saying.
So follow-up question to that: if you are a bedwetter, does that mean that you'll spend all of your eternity just pissing yourself?
Hmm.
Pissing the night away.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas about how life or human life came to be? Do you think it's a natural gradient, or is there a missing link?
I mean, I think any kind of idealization that we're that different from any other animal is just arrogance. I think we are constantly evolving and changing, just like every other animal around us is.
I do feel, and maybe this is my arrogance, but I feel like there is a separation. And like there's a few different things it's actually kind of a big topic on the show. But like you could say sapiens, but then you have things like dolphins, dogs, monkeys, that seem to be self-aware. So it comes down to the harnessing of fire. Humans can manipulate fire and create it.
Why is that the determining factor? Why does fire rule all of a sudden?
Because that is the thing that's different.
Okay.
We're talking about a distinguishing factor. That's the thing.
Because it's really what separates our physics and our ability to use physics to make the technology we have. And no other
But the
animals.
animals are over there like, those bitches can't fly, right?
That doesn't.
Right.
I'm not saying it's better.
But they're born with
necessarily,
that.
it's just-
They're born with
that
that.
is a distinguishing factor.
And we're really frail, and that's kind of a good point. We don't have claws. We can't. Almost any other animal can kill us if we have no weapon. In the wild especially. If we didn't come up with antibiotics to kill the bacterial infection that we would get from virtually any creature in the wild that bites us, we're screwed. We're the weakest creature on the planet. How do we come up with discovering bacteria? Through a microscope. How do we come up with lensing? Through melting silicone in a glass. How do we do that? With fire. Everything in technology that we've done great is not because we could use it, because we could harness it. We could make it, harness it, and discover what it does.
Yeah.
But not all humans can start a fire without a lighter.
We didn't start the fire.
We lost it. We lost that ability. We didn't get taught that because we didn't need to. They're like, you go get a lighter.
I bet that you could train an animal to start a fire if you gave him a lighter.
Probably.
Right. But we would have to
train a monkey? Them. I bet you could.
We would have to train them. And then that's domesticating them. And then after a couple of generations, they're not the same genetics.
So that's the question, right?
We taught wolves not to eat sheep and to herd them for us, and they became canines. We genetically altered them by domestication.
So
if
we would have to teach a monkey how to use fire, how did we learn how to use fire?
But I bet animals have domesticated humans before too.
We did it to ourselves.
What do you
mean? We did it to ourselves. Now, animals.
We domesticated ourselves to house cats. We are the
Basically,
passive house
yeah,
cats.
you know, now that's the thing is, there are other animals that herd or other creatures. Ants herd aphids, you know, and it's, you know, you've got crazy things like that, and all these different things that you see in nature, even what Alex was talking about, like vengeance, we're finding vengeance happen in nature. And we never thought it would happen, but, you know, we're seeing psychological things going on in creatures in nature that are going, well, that's not a separation. But when it boils back down to it, they have not sat down, and somebody, like you're saying, we could probably teach a monkey how to do it, but we also have to keep teaching him other things, you know.
I mean, eventually, once we taught him how to make fire, he would start figuring a few things out over time.
Mm-hmm.
But
he would destroy
he
a
would have
lot
to
of
teach the
stuff.
monkey how to make fire.
Right.
And even if
Which
he got a
is-
hold of a lighter, right? Like
Yeah, I mean, if
that's
you
a
just handed it to
tool.
him, I bet he'd teach himself.
But no, that's a tool though. That's a human made, right? So
Yeah.
it's made to be easy though. It's made you
Yeah,
just hit a
that's
button.
what I said though. There's so many humans that cannot start a fire
Right.
without a lighter.
Well, true.
Because we never were taught, Cordie. If we were in the tundra on a tribe, we'd all be taught that, or we, you know, you'd be used. That'd be pretty useless to the tribe. They'd be like, you can't make fire.
Yeah.
We're all
We
pretty
just,
Yeah.
useless.
well, that's what I'm
But
saying. We've become
but
very
society is
frail.
softer
We would
now.
have
We don't have
died
to
on the
know how to make
tundra if we didn't
Exactly. We're
figure it
all
out.
useless and frail. We're basically weak animals.
We
Exactly.
are. We're very weak animals.
And the only reason
Without,
we survived
without
is
the
because we
ability
made fire.
Somebody made
to
fire.
create light and heat.
Humans made fire, not us.
Yeah.
But
Some smart humans.
yeah, I think it comes down to fire. Like, so, and then that raises the question, like, did something teach us how to use fire, like the Greek tale of Prometheus, like handing humans the torch and teaching them how to make it? Like, how to do? Or maybe we just stumbled across it. Maybe we were rubbing sticks together one day, and then fire happened. We're like, I'm gonna do this every day. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see what then still stops another animal from being able to get to that same point either.
You mean like on their own?
Yeah, I mean, if we as if we're going by a theory that we were all basically just like dumb animals that had tougher skin, stronger teeth, bigger claws at one point, and then we have slowly changed to the extent that we no longer need those things, then it's possible. It's possible that another creature could go through the same evolution. I think that for whatever reason, we happen to do that, humans specifically, and it reached a point where it was very successful for us. And kind of to wrap this back around to the one of the first questions that you asked about the greatest threat to humanity, and that being ourselves. I think we've gotten too successful to the point where like we're not really keeping up with it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's sure it is the thing that like sets us apart, I guess. I wouldn't go to any extent to say that it makes us any kind of, it doesn't make us special.
Not superior necessarily, just different. It's
that happens
distinguishing
to be
characteristic.
that happens to be our advantage, and we see that advantage as being, I think, greater than it really is because it's the thing that's special to us.
So that's actually interesting on that. How did that? So that's something I really struggle with is yes, Sapiens doesn't seem to have any kind of survival in it. It's totally just over here. So how did people, how would evolution, like, if it's not for survival, why would evolution apply for it? It almost seems like a missing link to me. Does that make sense?
I think I'm missing something in the point you're trying to make.
Yeah, so I'm doing a bad job explaining this. So, okay. You were just making a point that the intelligence that we enjoy is not as beneficial as we like to think it is. It's not as important as like we like to think it is. That being true,
how did we get to this point? Because evolution tries to push the characteristics best fit for survival. So how does sapience arise? It almost seems like something else to me.
I feel like we're riding on the comfort coattails of like all that we've established up to this point. Like housing, electricity, the things that we've maintained that have been discovered over the course of like decades, centuries.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's the root to the issues that we're running. And it goes back to the self. Power consumption, people can argue all day long, especially when they don't really understand energy technology. And not everybody does. You got to go to school for that shit. But what would do us better than anything, better than changing from fossil fuel to wind to this to that to anything, is everybody to just pay attention to how much power they consume themselves. It goes back to the simple things. How many lights do you leave on? How much power do you really need to run? How much do you, and it goes back to water, everything. We've gotten, just like Cordie said, we're so comfortable in what we've done technologically. We take it so for granted that we've made ourselves weak, and that's the domestication we've done. If this got all pulled away from us, how many people could survive? How many people can, I know how to start fire with sticks. I cannot guarantee you that if we're stuck out somewhere that I can successfully do it. But I'm going to try until we freeze to death. As well,
Even like a generation ago, we were more self-sufficient, but like, like my generation, we can't do shit. Like my dad could like rewire things, like fix a door on its hinges, like repair drywall. Like if anything goes out in my house and somebody doesn't pick up the phone, I am fucked. I can restart my router.
Since the time I've had a driver's license, I've had a GPS, and I cannot get anywhere on my own.
I can't get anywhere, and I've lived here over a decade.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad.
It's not good.
It's not good.
I don't necessarily think it's that we are less able to take care of ourselves or less. I think what's really happening here is that the things that it takes to survive in the current world that we live in are very different.
Sure. It is true.
And just to be able to scrape by a living enough to be able to take care of your shit, even with, you can go to college, get a college degree, all that shit, be putting a lot of debt, just to be able to scrape by a living takes so much right now that we don't necessarily need to know all the skills, because over time we're all being pushed into more and more specialized little areas.
Yeah,
that is true. The job market's very different, and the value of the dollar is very different.
And it's that we as a species, I think, are becoming more dependent upon each other, but at the same time we're all dependent on each other, so we're all doing something that other people need.
Yeah, otherwise you can't exist in society.
Oh, I gotta piss.
Yeah, go for it, man, and then we'll wrap up when you get back.
I said that I was feeling worthless, but I do work very hard to pay my own bills.
It is hard. He makes a good point that it's not necessarily that we're weaker. We apply our skills to our survival currently, not to an outdated form of survival. Of course, we don't have those skills. It's not.
Exactly.
We don't need them. We don't. And we do need other things, and we fill our mind with those things. We need charisma in order to go get a job.
What do you mean?
You're extremely charismatic. So, okay.
Okay.
Y'all are starting to sound like a couple of anarchists.
Today, somebody told me I was very American, and I was like, "Oh, thank you," because I know that's a compliment to you.
Thank you, because I know you think that's a good thing.
I know you may notice the highest compliment
What was the context?
because I was defending somebody's right to say something I don't believe in.
They said you're a true-blooded American.
Yeah, I know they meant it as a compliment. I was like, I don't agree with what they're saying, but I believe in their right to say it.
Yeah. And they're like, you're a true patriot.
No, they were like, that's because you're an American. I was like,
I'm just gonna take that compliment.
I'm learning to take compliments one step at a time.
Well, Joe, we're reaching the end of our time. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm gonna miss you, Alice.
Yeah. Well, you'll be back soon.
Yes.
Spoilers. He'll be back soon. And no more details on that.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
Privilege.
Alice, go check out Resistance House Band. Go check out Big Jed's Big Rigs. Go check out PJ and the Bear. Go check out Indifference. And go check out, Follyball.
You almost
yeah.
made it.
Almost made it. I mean, I've seen most of these bands.
You get around.
Yeah. Thanks again for being here, man. And Alice, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Alice.